You trust people more than you think. Not because you want to, not because they've earned it, but because your brain is wired to. Every single day, you make instant decisions about people. You decide who feels safe, who feels honest, who feels real. And most of the time, you're wrong. Not slightly wrong, not occasionally wrong, completely wrong. Because you're not actually reading people. You're reacting to patterns, familiarity, tone of voice, facial expressions, confidence. Your brain takes these signals and builds a story, fast, too fast. Before you even realize it, you've already decided who someone is. And once that decision is made, you stop looking for the truth. You start looking for confirmation. That's where it begins. Not with deception, but with assumption. Because the moment you think you understand someone, you lower your guard. You stop questioning. You stop analyzing. You trust. And that trust is exactly what makes you vulnerable. The problem is, people don't need to trick you directly. They don't need to lie perfectly. They don't need to manipulate every detail. They just need you to believe your first impression. Because once you believe it, you do the rest yourself. You ignore red flags. You justify behavior. You explain things away. You protect the image you created in your mind, even when reality starts breaking it. And the more you invest in that image, the harder it becomes to let it go. Because now, you're not just trusting them, you're defending your own judgment. And that's dangerous. Because your judgment is not as independent as you think. It's shaped by everything you've experienced, everything you've seen, everything you've been exposed to. Your idea of a trustworthy person didn't come from nowhere. It was built, slowly, without you noticing. And once it's built, you start applying it automatically to everyone. That's why certain people feel safe instantly, not because they are, but because they match the pattern your brain recognizes. And that pattern can be wrong, very wrong. Because people who know how to behave in a certain way can bypass your defenses completely. They don't need to force trust, they trigger it effortlessly. And once that happens, you don't question them, you trust them, even when you shouldn't.
The moment you believe you understand someone, you stop trying to see them clearly.
Because certainty feels comfortable. It removes doubt. It removes effort. It gives you a sense of control. But that certainty is often built on very little. A few conversations, a few reactions, a few carefully observed behaviors, and your brain fills in the rest. Not with truth, but with assumptions. It takes what it sees and completes the picture. And once that picture feels complete, you treat it as reality. That's where the real mistake happens. Because people are not consistent. They are adaptive. They change depending on the situation, depending on what they want, depending on who they're dealing with. Which means the version of someone you see is not the full version. It's a projection, a selected behavior, a controlled image. And the problem is, you don't see the difference. Because your brain prefers simplicity. It wants clear categories. Good person, bad person. Trustworthy, not trustworthy. But reality doesn't work like that. People can be convincing without being honest. They can appear genuine without being real. They can act consistent while hiding everything that matters. And the more confident someone seems, the easier it is to trust them. Because confidence feels like truth, even when it isn't. Your brain associates certainty with honesty. So when someone speaks clearly, acts decisively,
and shows no hesitation, you assume they're real. But hesitation is not the opposite of truth, and confidence is not proof of it. It's just behavior, and behavior can be learned, which means the people you trust the most might simply be the best at appearing trustworthy. And that's where it gets dangerous. Because once someone fits your mental pattern, you stop analyzing them. You stop questioning inconsistencies. You ignore small contradictions because they don't match the image you already accepted. And instead of adjusting your perception, you adjust reality to fit it. You explain things away, you justify actions. You convince yourself that everything still makes sense, even when it doesn't. That's how people stay in situations they should have left a long time ago. Not because they don't see anything wrong, but because they've already decided what's right. And changing that decision feels like admitting you were wrong, which is something the brain avoids at all costs. So instead of correcting the mistake, it protects it. And the longer that goes on, the deeper you fall into it, because now you're not just trusting them. You're depending on the idea that they are who you think they are. And once that dependency exists, it becomes very hard to break, even when the truth is right in front of you.
And the moment you realize this, everything changes. Not because people suddenly become different, but because you start seeing them differently. You begin to notice things you ignored before. Small inconsistencies, subtle reactions, moments that don't quite fit the image you created in your mind. And at first, it feels uncomfortable. Because now you're not just questioning them, you're questioning yourself, your judgment, your instincts, your ability to read people. And that's not easy, because trusting your perception is something you've done your entire life. But once that trust breaks, you can't go back to the way things felt before. You start hesitating, observing more, thinking twice before believing what you see. And that's where awareness begins. Not in knowing everything, but in realizing how much you don't know. Because the truth is, you will never see people completely. No one does. There will always be things hidden, things controlled, things you don't notice. But that doesn't mean you have to stay blind. It just means you need to stop assuming. Stop rushing to conclusions. Stop trusting first impressions. Stop believing that what you see is all there is. Because the moment you slow down, you create space. Space to observe, space to question, space to see patterns instead of isolated moments. And patterns reveal more than words ever will. They show consistency, or the lack of it. They show intention, or contradiction. And once you start looking for patterns, people become clearer. Not because they change, but because you finally see beyond the surface. And that's the difference between trusting blindly and understanding consciously. Because real understanding takes time. It takes distance. It takes the willingness to accept that your first impression might be wrong. And most people never reach that point. They keep trusting too fast, believing too easily, seeing what they want to see instead of what's actually there. And that's why they get hurt, again and again and again. Not because people are always deceptive, but because they never stopped to truly look. So the next time you feel like you understand someone, pause. Not because they're lying, but because you might be. Ask yourself, am I seeing them clearly, or am I just seeing what I expect to see? Because that question might be the only thing standing between you and another mistake.